By the time a diver's light finally cut through the black, Harrison Okene had already spent about 60 hours trapped alive inside an air pocket 30 meters beneath the Atlantic. A tugboat lay upside down on the ocean floor off the coast of Nigeria, 30 meters down, after capsizing in heavy swells on May 26, 2013. Inside the wreck, in darkness, one man was still alive. Harrison Okene, the 29-year-old cook on board the Jascon 4, had survived the sinking and found refuge in a roughly 13.5 cubic meter air pocket. That small space, trapped inside an overturned vessel at the bottom of the Atlantic, became the boundary between life and death. The danger was not only the sea outside the steel, it was also the air inside the wreck. According to a diving medicine expert cited later, a person in an air bubble of that size would have roughly 56 hours before carbon dioxide reached toxic levels. Okene would be discovered after about 60 hours. By then, reports said, he was already in the early stages of hypercapnia, carbon dioxide toxicity. So the low point of this story is not simply a shipwreck, it is a countdown. A man alone in freezing black water, in a shrinking chance of survival, waiting in a place where rescue was no longer expected. The vessel had sunk. The others on board were gone, and every breath inside that air pocket was changing the chemistry of the room around him. What does a person do when there is no horizon, no daylight, and no certainty that anyone is coming? In Okene's case, the answer was painfully simple. Stay calm, breathe carefully. Part 1, the boat goes over. And hold on to his mind for as long as the air would allow. The known facts of the accident are stark. On May 26, 2013, the Jascon 4 capsized in heavy swells and sank to the ocean floor. The wreck came to rest 30 meters underwater off the coast of Nigeria. For the people aboard, there was almost no margin for error in an event like that. The vessel turned, flooded, and settled below. Okene was the ship's cook. In the violence of the sinking, he survived the initial disaster and made his way into the air pocket that would keep him alive. That detail matters, because survival here was not open water survival, not a life raft, not a surface rescue. It was entrapment. The place that kept him alive was also the place that trapped him. Inside an overturned vessel, orientation disappears. Up and down stop behaving the way they should. Darkness becomes total. Cold water surrounds every movement. Even the small airspace that offers hope can become threatening because it is finite. The air pocket was roughly 13.5 cubic meters. That sounds measurable, even substantial, until you remember what it had to do: sustain a human being isolated underwater for days. This is where the story narrows from disaster to endurance. Heavy swells had already done their damage. The ocean floor had already claimed the boat. Outside the wreck, divers would eventually approach with one expectation. Inside the wreck, a single survivor had to confront a different reality. The disaster was over, but the real test was just beginning. And in that kind of silence, one question becomes larger than all the others. How do you keep panic from using up the little time you have left? Part 2, the air pocket. The air pocket was not rescue, it was borrowed time. National Geographic later reported the estimate from a diving medicine expert. In an air bubble the size of Okene's, carbon dioxide would likely reach toxic levels in about 56 hours. That estimate gives the confinement a clock. Not an exact one, but a deadly one. As a person breathes in an enclosed space, oxygen falls and carbon dioxide rises. That means the threat inside a trapped air pocket is invisible. There is no dramatic warning light, no cracking sound from the hull that tells you the room is becoming unlivable. The body notices first. Breathing changes, thought changes, control begins to slip. By the time Okene was found after about 60 hours, he was already reported to be in the early stages of hypercapnia. That detail reframes his survival. He was not simply waiting in a lucky bubble of air. He was surviving in an environment that was steadily turning against him. Even if the sea stayed out, the atmosphere in that small refuge was becoming dangerous. And there was another battle happening at the same time: fear. In a closed, flooded wreck, panic is not just emotion, it is a physical threat. Faster breathing means using the air more quickly and adding carbon dioxide more rapidly. Losing control of your mind can shorten your survival. So every minute in that space carried two pressures at once. One was measurable, chemical, building in the air around him. The other was psychological, building in the dark. That combination is what makes this story so hard to reduce to a simple miracle. It was also a prolonged contest between a human mind and an environment designed, step by step, to overwhelm it. Part 3, Prayers in the Dark. How did he keep that mind intact long enough for anyone to find him? According to the reported accounts, Harrison Okene maintained his sanity and controlled his breathing by constantly reciting prayers and psalms that his wife had texted him. That is one of the most revealing facts in the entire story, because it tells us what survival looked like from the inside. He was not fighting with tools. He was not repairing the vessel. He was not signaling through open water. He was managing himself. In an overturned tugboat, 30 meters below the surface, he used repetition, memory, and prayer to stop fear from taking over. The Psalms gave him words when the darkness offered none. The act of reciting them gave structure to time that otherwise would have dissolved into panic. Controlled breathing mattered. The accounts say he used the prayers to keep that control. In practical terms, that meant refusing to let terror dictate the rhythm of his body. In emotional terms, it meant holding on to a connection to another person, his wife, through the messages she had sent him. Even in total isolation, those words were not nothing. They were companionship, routine, and discipline. This part of the story is easy to romanticize, but it is more powerful when left plain. A man trapped underwater kept speaking words that helped him stay calm. He did it over and over because calm was survival. He did it because the alternative was chaos, and chaos inside a sealed air pocket is dangerous. For hour after hour, while the wreck rested on the ocean floor, prayer became a way to resist the conditions around him, not to change them, not to guarantee rescue, but to buy time inside them. And eventually, after about 60 hours, time produced the one thing he could not create for himself: another human presence in the dark. The Jascon 4 did not immediately become the scene of a dramatic live rescue mission. When divers went down to the wreck, the expectation was body recovery. That fact gives the moment of discovery its full weight. No one was descending into that overturned tugboat expecting to find a living crew member still breathing inside. Then a diver found Harrison Okene alive. It is one of those moments that feels almost impossible because it arrives so late in the timeline. By then, the estimates on survivable air had nearly run out. By then, Okene was already in the early stages of carbon dioxide toxicity. By then, the wreck had been on the seafloor for about 60 hours. But discovery was not the end of danger. Finding a living person trapped at depth is not the same as bringing that person safely back into ordinary atmosphere. Okene had been inside a sunken vessel, 30 meters underwater, for an extended period. Reports say he had massive nitrogen saturation. That meant the environment he had survived in had also changed his body in ways that made a normal ascent potentially fatal. So the rescue had to continue carefully. Rescuers transferred him to a pressurized diving bell. After that, he was placed in a decompression chamber for days to prevent fatal decompression sickness. This is the kind of aftermath that often gets compressed into a single sentence. He was saved. But in reality, his body could not simply leave the bottom and return to the surface as if nothing had happened. Survival depended on a second stage of discipline, equipment, and medical understanding. The same ocean pressure that had surrounded the wreck had to be respected all the way through his recovery from it. The question now changed again. He had survived the wreck. He had survived the air pocket. He had survived long enough to be found. Part 4, After the Wreck. But what does a person carry upward after living through something like that? The consequences of the disaster are impossible to separate from Okene's survival. While he lived, 11 of his crewmates perished. Any telling of this event has to hold both truths at once. There was extraordinary survival, and there was also profound loss. For Okene, rescue did not erase what had happened. The sources say he later overcame trauma. That word matters because it places the real struggle where many survival stories stop. The end of immediate danger is not always the end of the event. A person can leave the wreck and still remain in conversation with it for years. There is also something sobering about the way his survival became known to the world. The image most people remember is the impossibility of a man found alive underwater after days. But to live through that is different from seeing it as astonishment. The actual experience included isolation, fear, toxic air, pressure, and a long decompression process after discovery. It also existed beside the deaths of his crewmates. That is why the aftermath deserves time. Recovery here was not simply physical stabilization in a chamber. It was the harder work of living on with the memory of an overturned boat on the seafloor and the knowledge that he alone had come out alive. Many people might reasonably assume that such an experience would end any relationship with the underwater world. After being trapped inside a sunken vessel in darkness for about 60 hours, who would willingly return to anything like that environment? Who would choose even to approach it again? Yet this is where the story takes its most surprising turn, not because it ignores the trauma, but because it moves through it. In 2015, Harrison Okene became a certified commercial diver. The fact stands on its own as a remarkable reversal. 2 years earlier, the underwater world had nearly become his tomb. Then, after overcoming trauma, he chose to return to that environment through training and qualification. There is no need to exaggerate what that means. The achievement is already extraordinary in the verified facts. He did not merely survive the sea. He built a professional future in the very domain that had once held him in darkness at the bottom of the Atlantic. One detail makes the ending even more resonant. He received his diploma from the very diver who found him. In documentary terms, it is an ending that almost seems too perfectly shaped to be true, except that it is the documented record. The rescuer from the wreck reappears in the story not at the site of disaster, but at the moment of return. That return does not cancel what happened on May 26, 2013. The heavy swells, the capsized Jascon 4, the 30-meter descent to the ocean floor, the roughly 13.5 cubic meter air pocket, the 60-hour wait, the onset of hypercapnia, the decompression chamber, and the loss of 11 crewmates all remain part of the same story. Becoming a diver is not a clean rewrite of those facts. It is what came after them. And that may be the deepest reason this story endures. Not simply because a man was found alive where almost no one expected life, but because survival did not end at rescue. It continued in the harder, quieter form of recovery, and then in a decision to face the same element again under different terms. At the bottom of the Atlantic, Okene's world shrank to a pocket of air and a set of prayers repeated in darkness. Years later, the arc of his life had widened again, not by forgetting that place, but by walking back toward it with training, certification, and a new role inside the world that once nearly closed over him. If this story brought up distress, trauma, or thoughts about survival and loss, consider reaching out to a local mental health professional, crisis line, or trusted support person in your area.